Okay, I think it's recording. This will be the fourth time I do this. Somebody asked me on YouTube to please continue to do my videos and not to give up, and that he really cares. And even though he lives in Europe or the Middle East somewhere, he cares about my story and my human rights causes, and he encouraged me to please put out another video. So it put me in flashbacks, and I was up all night and I can't sleep and I can't eat. And even though I had a lovely day, I skied today, it's really not, my brain is going in flashbacks, and I have no choice. I'm going to have to do this or I'll never get to sleep. It's called 101 Things I Was Taught. And I typed it out, and so I'll read it so that I can stay on track. The first time I heard "you good for nothing effing slut," I was 7 years old. It was my father screaming. The first time I was raped at 16 years old, I was told he did that because he loves you too much and cannot control himself. You should forgive him. It was my mother speaking. So I did, and he did it again and again. The first time I remember my girlfriend saying, "Trudy, you are so dumb. I don't know how you will ever graduate out of high school." And I became so terrified from that day on of tests that I would study and take horrific panic attacks in fear of failing. I will be 80 in 2 years, and already I'm terrified I will fail my test and lose my license. I remember the 1960s gurus telling me that I was in control of everything that happens to me. No matter what horror, rape, robbed, brutality, the horror I endured was because I was giving out bad vibrations, and it was all my fault. And if I put out the right kind of positive vibes, I'd be okay. I remember being belittled and ridiculed. Friends pissing on my brains is what I like to call it. My mom told me they were just kidding. I had no sense of humor, and I should stop being so sensitive. I spent my life vulnerable, an easy target to being raped, abused, conned, with no instincts of self-preservation. My instincts on what is good or bad, who is evil or loving, was so mutilated that I had no ability, no instincts for self-preservation. It would not be until they tried to kill me or stick a gun in my face that I would finally recognize danger and run for my life. The problem is Mom always made me forgive them, so I go back and they do it again. The only reason I survived was by divine intervention, often rescued by strangers from all walks of life. Despite my allergies, family and friends would poison me over and over again, and I would go into shock. Toxic shock syndrome, whatever you want to call it. In those days, nobody believed that that was for real. There was no such thing. And I just lost my place. Mom and my friends were especially good at making sure that even though I thought the food was poisoning me, it was all in my imagination. Even though I felt like the rapes had nothing to do with love, I had no way of stopping it, because they kept convincing me that it was love. And over the years, each attack got worse, and it took longer for me to recover as I constantly was being poisoned, never knowing why. Not Dad so much. He hated if I got paralyzed, unable to work. Unless I was working and making money, I wasn't worth keeping alive. Despite his violence, sociopathic, sadistic cruelty, it was the one good thing about my father. Mother was too psychotic to be of much help at the best of times. She became my child when I was 7 years old, and I always took care of her. But in the real sense of the word, she was never my mother. I spent decades with psychiatric therapy, but it never helped me one bit. If someone said to me I should do this or that, etc., I had no ability to refuse. I would spiral in a compulsion that I had to and had no choice, such as today. I had no ability to refuse. When I took a major attack in 1966 at Goodis Goldberg Advertising Agency, and Jack Cooper wanted to train me to become a producer, he said I had a rare talent that he could develop. But my doctor said, that was Dr. Keltz, my doctor of 23 years, said that it was the stress causing my attacks and I should quit. Despite the fact that I loved the stress and I loved the job, I was forced to believe him because my brain just wouldn't let me do anything else. And despite the fact that I'd had these attacks all my life since the age of 6, especially after eating, often I'd starve myself so I could function, work, dance, or ski. And I still do that. I remember asking Dr. Keltz if maybe I had immune deficiencies. I did a lot of reading in libraries searching for answers since the age of 7. And he said there was no such thing. Both Jerry Goodis and Jack Cooper begged me not to quit. They wanted to help me find specialist doctors, but Mom said I should listen to my doctor, and so I did. And he went on to ignore my disease for another 20 years until I became terminal, crippled, lost memory, unable to read or write, unable to work or function with any comprehension of reality. It was then, in 1984, Dr. Keltz then dumped me and left me to die on the streets, refusing to sign for even social assistance or welfare of any and disability of any kind. I was told over and over somehow it was all my fault. My aunt told me and spread it around that I was just a lazy, good-for-nothing bitch and was a hypochondriac. Finally, after I tried to commit suicide for the last time and failed, yes, I had tried many times and many times before, and always I failed. Again, through divine intervention, or strangers would rescue me. I don't know how. Now I was 42, lost my memory, no longer able to work, read, or write, and my new doctor, Brian Lynch, tried to murder me. That was when I finally realized that something was really wrong and it could not possibly be all my fault. I had gone to many meetings of adult children of alcoholics, and Sister Bonnie told me to never use the word love in my mind, but transfer that word for caring. Ask myself, is this person treating me with caring? If the answer is no, they do not love me. That helped me a lot. I now began to understand why I was such an easy prey to predators. They can see me and smell my blood from miles off, but I can't see them. Still, even now that I understand, I still cannot recognize well enough to protect myself. What is even strange, however, is that I can always recognize the good from the bad if someone else is going to become a victim. And I've saved many other victims' lives in so doing, but I just can't do it for me. Despite all the brain damage and emotional mutation, I can still compute and analyze the future and real estate market with incredible accuracy for someone else. I just can't do it for myself. Somehow I just cannot get myself well enough to know that I count. It is a subconscious addiction that I have no control over. Today I do know that I didn't deserve what was done to me. However, knowing that doesn't change a thing. After the last rape was done, I no longer used the word forgive. I deleted it from my vocabulary and cut them off, put them on my shit list for life. After I lost my home and robbed of my life savings, I cut all ties with that person and persons, all being my life partner's brother, one being my biological family and brother, and one being my previous lawyer, Trent Faldine. No, I do not forgive them. I don't let myself play that head game anymore. I am not God. Let God forgive them. I hope they burn in hell for all eternity, except that I don't believe there is a hell, and they will probably get reborn to do it all over again to somebody else. And that gets me accused of harboring hate. What a lot of crap. If I hated them, I'd have used what money I had to have them exterminated. I just don't indulge in stupid forgiveness nonsense anymore. I remember trying so hard to stay away from my family and people who were cruel to me that one guy said, "Geez, Trudy, do you have to use a tank to swat a fly?" "Yes," I replied, "it's the only language you understand." Do I still tolerate verbal abuse from anyone? No, not for long. Well, maybe a little bit, but not for long. I throw it right back at them, or I just cut them off and never talk to them again. The only people I do forgive are people sick like me, and when they actually do something to make amends, and I don't mean verbal diarrhea, folks. I mean they take an action, and that makes an amends. Then I let go what they did or said and open my heart up to them with caring. Sister Bonnie taught me that. If someone does something good for you, or physically helps you with something or your disease, they are good. If they harm you in any way, they are evil. Stay away from them forever. And if they say they care, but do nothing good or bad, they are fair weather friends. Hiya, nice to see ya, blah blah. But that does not make them good friends. She warned me about those who are constantly asking me for something or help, giving nothing back. They will drain me, and so they did all my life. And I do mean drain me. If not money, my health. Did I ever recover from the rapes and being vulnerable to rape? Not really. The last rape when I was 42, he was a cop, and for obvious reasons, since I went to his house invited for coffee, I deserved what I got. It was all my own fault. I should never have been there in the first place. Where did you hear that before? Society tells me that I should have known better. So I just picked myself up off the floor and never went near him again. The problem for me was that after every rape, and there were so many over the decades, I had a compulsion that I did not understand to find someone, anyone, a stranger, to have the right to choose, and I had to have sex giving myself the right to choose. This compulsion persisted no matter how much therapy I got, and each time it terrified me that I would get a sexual disease. The only way I can function in a relationship is it must be celibate and has no sex. Plenty of affection, but no sex. Lucky for me, you would be surprised how many men out there actually do understand, and celibacy was okay with them. Finally, after my last Dr. Brian Lynch tried to murder me, I fired all my doctors, after I escaped, of course, and worked only with doctors who believed in immune deficiencies, chemical hypersensitivities, and would help me survive my attacks, not with drugs, but with food. Doctors who would help me and encourage me to research diets for disease control. I succeeded in that quest, but still just can't write good enough to get published. So millions will suffer as I have done needlessly, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. My discovery that raw okra, just a couple a day, would control my Parkinsonism disease. Doesn't cure it. Too much damage done to my brain for that, but it does control it to a limited degree. Reversed all the memory loss. Listen to me. I've done a lot of research, and if you look up any of my websites, you'll see that I'm certainly not dysfunctional in reading and writing to that extent that I was. And it repaired the brain damage to a degree. Okra feeds the brain, yet tragically it's not being publicized. I did what I could, shared it on all social media, but with little or no result. Consequently, I live in terror that my source of supply will disappear, which means I will become a paraplegic all over again, terminal, unable to read or write all over again, a mutilated carcass covered in ice packs, suffering the brutal torture of excruciating pain and wishing I was dead, but instead living with dying. Finally, after losing everything financially, becoming homeless, and Dan took me in off the streets and is paying the rent which I cannot afford, I live in terror if something happens to him, I'll be on the streets homeless again, passed from man to man like a piece of meat. My attacks are horrific. Instantly, without warning, I am a cripple, completely helpless and cannot function alone on my own, crawling on my hands and knees, unable to speak coherently, living with dying all over again and again. Real estate fraud is still legal in Ontario. Truth is, real property and estate fraud is legal in every province but Saskatchewan. The question is why? And who is profiteering by such laws that promote people to be robbed of their homes and real estate investments? These secret filing laws cost Canadian homeowners billions in losses every year. Most become destitute as I did, yet no one cares. Media silence on this subject is a deafening mystery. Victims become helpless as beached whales locked in a political and legal court system that is so corrupt they are doomed, while only the criminal has all the rights. And in 99.9% of the cases, they get away with it in Canada, which of course is why Canada is such a haven for criminals. And that is the truth about Canada, people. Politicians and government civil servants who serve no one but themselves are completely indifferent to both the cost and the suffering victims endure. How simple it would be. Fire Health Canada and give people the right to choice. Make a law that all food labels must contain all ingredients and that people have the right to know what is in their food. Health Canada are legal murderers, creators of both genetic and acquired diseases, answering to no one but themselves. Since our laws have made what Health Canada officials have done legal, you cannot put them in jail. The only solution is to ban them entirely. And they are the creator or perpetuator of Parkinsonism disease, my disease, which is now worldwide, thanks to their promoting canola oil. And that's a whole nother story, and you can look that up. That at least has been published by others, not just by me. The Charter of Rights in Canada must contain protection for all registered owners, with, of course, the provision that the government, when necessary, can still expropriate land, but that the law must give all Canadians the same laws as in every other democratic country, England, United States of America, Europe, and the one province, Saskatchewan, whose laws do provide such total protection that it is virtually impossible for anyone to commit the kind of real estate fraud or put their name on or a mortgage on title illegally and rob you of your home, or sever joint tenancy on the matrimonial home, defrauding one spouse out of their rights to inheritance. Have I done enough? Probably not. Is my writing this time good enough? Somehow I doubt it. I still can't do anything right, but I do know whether you think so or not, I am worth something, even if I have no money left. Today I have very few friends, hundreds of acquaintances, and fare thee well friends. But the real true friends today that I have, like Helen, Jill, Brian, Colette, Francine, and my honey bun Dan McIsaac, are my family. I am no longer alone with no family. They are my family, and God has blessed me tenfold to have them in my life. Just for today, one day at a time, just one moment at a time, I am happy. Yes, I'm happy. I danced on Sunday. I cross-country skied last Friday, Saturday, Monday, and today. Yet, the week before and last night I was crawling on my hands and knees, and Dan had to lift me up and put me to bed. I had taken a tax. No, I'm not perfect. I am not cured. But my diet for disease control has given me a lot back. And without OKRA, I'll lose it all again. It's one thing to lose my home, and it's one thing to lose all my money. But it's quite another to be in excruciating pain, crawling on my hands and knees, begging for help. And my speech is incoherent, and I can't read and I can't write, and I have no memory. No, I don't ever want to go back there. Each step today I take is painful. I hide it well. I have a very high tolerance to pain. I have to fight crippling, paralyzing attacks to survive. Each sentence I write is mental agony. But just for now, I'm happy. Of course, I never got over when someone says I should do something. I have to. It's God speaking. My brain goes into overdrive, flashbacks, visions exploding inside my brain, and it won't stop until I do that something. Like write this article for the 100th time, send out emails to media and government for the 10,000th time in 25, 40 years or more. For until the job is done to my brain's satisfaction, I cannot sleep, I cannot eat, and I cannot function until the job is done. So just for today, the job is done. And I thank you, and I hope you share this with somebody someday. I thought I was done, but I'll have to call this part 2 on things that I was taught that ruined my life. I haven't been sleeping well. I've had flashbacks, and I had to finish it. I don't even know why I bothered, because nobody cares, and what difference does it make? But actually, if I don't know, maybe a parent will someday recognize the kind of harm that they do to their children, even though they think they're helping them. I had flashbacks for the last several nights and very little sleep, and it's making me sick, quite frankly. And I'm gaining weight, belly fat. Well, it doesn't seem like much, but it actually bothers me a great deal, because with my crippling legs, every pound is like 50 pounds. Anyway, I got up and I began to write this, and I'm just going to read it out, and I hope I can get this finished and put it out on YouTube for someday for parents. And I see in flashbacks, it rolls around inside my head, and the picture I was seeing was about 1963. I had been seduced by a lying, womanizing married man who deliberately got me pregnant. And he said he did it because he loved me so much, that he wanted his first child to be from me and expected me to give him my son that was born. I refused. I cut him off sex, and to make sure my child had a better future and upbringing than I had, I gave him up with a mother's love for adoption. And for any of you children out there who have been adopted, sometimes there's a good reason. Because if I had kept my son, his life would have been completely destroyed. My parents would have interfered, and I would have had little control, and I was sick all the time. I wouldn't have been able to take care of him all by myself. So I gave him up to give him a chance at a better life than I had. And the agency told me that it was to a childless couple who were well educated. Not that there's anything against a person who's a laborer, but because I came from a community of laborers and miners, and they were really, really ignorant and rude, and I'm 77 and they still are. Nothing's changed. So I was hoping that he would be better educated and have a better chance with parents that were educated. And obviously that's not always true, but I mean, at the time I did the best I could. And after he was adopted, I was still not well for over 2 years. And so I did part-time work. I never thought to go on welfare a day in my life. It just never crossed my mind. And I was highly skilled. I couldn't, even if I was crippled and sick, there's still a lot that I could do, work in an office. And I was really beautiful. It doesn't matter. I always said, I'm going to look good in my coffin. I'm an optical illusion. But so people would take pity on me and give me jobs that normally, if I was fat and ugly, they wouldn't. And in my new apartment on Yonge Street, it was close to the buses and the subway stop, and that's in Toronto. And it was a really lovely neighborhood and friendly, beautiful people, and fresh fruit stands, and a small little grocer that was family owned, and everybody was really friendly, and plenty of tree-lined streets with 2 little parks within walking distance. And one day I had a knock at my door, and I'd been really sick the night before, and it was the postman. And he was a very nice man. I chatted with him several times. I had a little peephole I could see in the door. And he had a telegram for me, and he needed my signature. And I told him, I cannot open the door. I'm a mess, and I have no makeup on. Now, you have to understand, I would have been about, 23, 24 at the time. He told me not to worry about that and please open the door, Trudy. So I put a scarf and sunglasses on. And when he saw me, he looked at me in this astonished look. He said, Trudy, why are you hiding like that? I said, oh, I'm so ugly. I can't bear for anyone to see me without makeup on. And his face changed to pity, and he was visibly very sad for me. And he told me I was just as pretty without makeup. And I said, but I cannot bear anyone to see me with I had natural, very blackish brown, dark hair. I'd been born blonde though. And I have, like no eyelashes and no eyebrows because they're blonde and all the hair on my body's blonde. But my hair was pitch black. And the contrast, and then I felt like my eyes looked like two piss holes in the snow. And he said, Trudy, that's terrible that you feel that way about yourself. He said, come on, I'm going to take you for a cup of coffee. And I said, no, people will stare at me and they'll see how ugly I really am. Well, he insisted, and that he was going to take me for a walk down the street, and he had a break. And he was due for a break. And he was going to prove to me that no one would stare at me and find me ugly. And I was that filled with self-loathing. And we talked for a very long time, and it became clear that the reason I felt like that was because my mother had made such an issue when I was a teenager that I had to dress beautifully, and my hair had to be just perfect, and the makeup had to be just right. And it was important, or I'd never find a good man to like me. And that really planted a seed in me, and I think I was about 13 or 14 years old, or 15. Anyway, to make sure, she put me in a modeling course, and I walked with books on my head, and I was a natural born dancer, so I learned to glide across the room like Sid Charisse, my idol, Sid Charisse. The way she moved, I thought was heavenly. And so I was able to walk graceful. That came easy. And in that modeling course, it did teach me how to wear makeup, and to such a degree that my face became a canvas, and I was an artist. And my God, I could make myself look like 15 different people. I'm telling you, I was very good at it. And I was just so creative with clothes and everything that it didn't matter what my condition was, I could look fabulous. And even now, I can do that. I want you to know, I'm on a really bad day, and my eyes are like, whoa, and I have colored glasses and little color this and color that. I didn't bother to put makeup on, but I've got little hair pieces. So I could really make myself look pretty darn good, no matter what my condition is. Anyway, he spent some time with me to talk about it, and he made me promise that for 1 hour a day I would take a walk without makeup and try to get comfortable in my own skin. And the truth is, I never did. Even now, because of the severity of my low immune system, and I get eye infections rapidly, I can no longer wear makeup of any kind, but I find ways around it. I have strangers stop me, even at 77. Just the other day I went shopping, and I want you to know I got all kinds of compliments from young people, young and old, but especially young people. They loved my colors, my style, and I make a lot of my own clothes, my own tights, and and it makes me feel good, that people compliment me and that I can still look really good even though I feel like garbage. Fair weather friends that don't see me crippled and crawling on my hands and knees and suffering in excruciating pain in a daily battle for survival. And they see me at a dance, or they see me my ski pictures on Facebook, and they're amazed at how good I look, no matter how sick I am. But you see, I really am an optical illusion and well trained as a model to look good. And I'll look good in my coffin, you know. But what you see is not real. And it usually gets a laugh. And I make jokes about it. But I can't help it, because I have in my own way come to terms with my own defects. However, unless I create an illusion, I still can't go out. I can't bear for you, like I'm doing my video and I made myself a little bit better. I can't bear for you to see me looking really a mess. It just fills me with such self-loathing. When I look in the mirror, I'm still filled with self-loathing, and I feel really, really ugly. And I can't help that. It's a compulsion to make myself look as beautiful as I can. And does beautiful make a difference? Oh, yes, people. Oh, yes. It certainly did. Despite my handicaps, I had amazing career opportunities that I turned down because I was so mentally mutilated that I could not allow myself to be too successful or too rich. If I did, then no one would like me just for me. Boy, I paid a dear price for that sick delusion. My father warned me I'd never find a decent man, and my mother made sure of it with her attitude. You know, like she kept pushing me towards rapists. Yeah, like my mother was very sick. And dressing up and color coordinated and making myself look beautiful does make me feel good, and it still does. Only now I really do it to please myself and no one else, and it's not just a compulsion. I'm completely aware that I'm doing it, and I want you to like me. My fear of failure and the compulsion to get the job done meant I worked twice as hard as anyone else and did the work of 5 people despite my handicaps, meaning I am a workaholic. And my employers sure got their money's worth out of me. Once I completed the research into my disease caused by toxic chemicals, canola oil, and I created a diet for disease control with the help of agencies from all over the United States and some in Europe, but mainly the United States. And then after discovering in 1995 that raw okra will reverse my brain damage and memory loss and reduces the crippling paralysis in my legs. But I still had to relearn the meaning of words, and it took me several years to get coherent sentences. I nearly killed myself trying to get published, and when no one would publish it for me, I learned how to use the internet and trying to get all the documented research onto a free nonprofit website. I took a mild heart attack, and I wound up in Emerge. I had worked nonstop 22 hours with no food or water, because if I stopped, I'd forget where I left off, and it was really hard for me to learn all this stuff, you know. I mean, I came from such brain damage, I couldn't read or write. Now I'm trying to do a website and the internet and Facebook and all that stuff. My God, not easy. So it was really, really, really difficult and very painful. But anyway, so I wound up in the hospital where Dr. Boudra, one of the good guys, chastised me for doing that. He'd known me now since 1984, and this was around 2013, so he'd known me a really long time. I seemed to get lucky every time I went to the hospital. He was either first he was an intern, then he became a doctor, and then even as the chief of staff, I wound up with him helping out in Emerge. So I didn't have to worry about being abused, because Dr. Boudra knew perfectly well that I was chemically hypersensitive, and he had never given me drugs and do stupid stuff to me like the other doctors did. Anyway, he said I had dehydrated, and that means your heart stops. I said, what? Dehydration means your heart stops? Well, okay. I've been researching disease, and I've been watching documentaries and so on. Everybody talks about dehydration. But you know what? They don't finish the sentence. Nobody says to you, oh, if you dehydrate, your heart stops. And I said to him, how do all those movies, they're out in the desert for 5 and 6 days, and they survive? He said, well, they are the movies. It's not likely. Or they find a way to get moisture from opening up a cactus or eating some leaves or something. But yeah, you can't go without water. So in fact, somebody said, drink your piss. better than nothing if you're on the desert. Anyway, I don't know about all that, but I'm just saying that he said to me, all I have to do is every 5 hours have a shot glass, because when I get working, I don't know what time it is. I don't know what day it is. So anyway, from there on, I kept learning. But when I told my dearest friend, Len Voisey, what happened, he was so upset. He said, I'm going to finish your website. Give me the research. And I went over to his place and we entered my password and I gave it to him and he finished it for me. And from there, he spent time, a few hours every other week, and teaching me how to do the rest slowly, a bit by myself. And today is 2019. I have finished uploading 4 websites, all the research into diets for disease control, the proof that canola oil is toxic, the proof that Health Canada was on the take to Monsanto, evidence and documents on laws in Canada that promote fraud, an invitation to steal your home and steal your title, and all in secret. And you don't, as a registered owner, you don't even have the right to be notified. And I've uploaded all of that. And Canada is the only country that has such laws. And I've uploaded all of that, not just on the websites and on YouTube and LinkedIn articles, Google Docs, Facebook pages have all my biography. I had to put all my biography because I couldn't write it. I put it on videos, and that's also on a website, and that's also on Facebook, and it's restricted because I use the real language that was being used at the time, raw. So I use foul words, right? But still, it was not enough. It's just never enough. I have only 46 subscribers on YouTube, 5 on Facebook, and nothing has ever been published, and it's not likely. There's been no change in the law or human rights since the day I was born, and I'm just not good enough to make it happen. God knows I tried. And that ends things that I was taught that ruined my life. But I don't feel bad about being a workaholic. It's the one good thing. And my fear of failure and having to be perfect. I've turned it into something very positive. And 200 years from now, I hope that the internet will have the evidence of what kind of disease your children will get from the environment, from the food we're eating, and from canola oil. And that OKRA and my diet for disease control, which basically isn't a lot different from what celebrities are on except for OKRA. And OKRA must be raw, people. It must be raw. There is no other choice. And I hope someday my work will get published and save millions of children from going through what I went through. God bless you. Over and out.